In a luxurious hotel in Paris, a humble man will have his integrity challenged as he faces the unfair judgment of those around him. However, what no one imagines is that this man keeps a secret capable of completely transforming their lives. When appearances can be deceiving, the deepest lessons about respect and humanity emerge in unexpected ways. Where are you watching from today? We'd love to know. The Paris sun shone brightly that afternoon, reflecting on the impeccable glass of the renowned Hôtel de l'Étoile, one of the most luxurious and sophisticated in the city. It was the kind of place where tycoons, movie stars, and high society figures stayed to enjoy service worthy of royalty. The hotel's lobby exuded richness and ostentation in every detail, from the crystal chandeliers that hung majestically from the ceiling to the tapestries that covered the walls with elegant scenes from bygone eras. It was in this exuberant setting that N'Golo Kanté arrived, alone and without attracting attention. He dressed simply, with a beige sweater and subtly faded jeans. No security, no assistance, no hint that this man was one of the biggest stars in world football. The tranquility on his face conveyed the humility of someone who didn't need to prove anything to anyone. N'Golo addressed the reception with his characteristic gentle smile. The employee served him courteously, but without the enthusiasm she used to reserve for more distinguished and well-known guests. In fact, many employees who passed by did not even give him a second look. After all, why would they pay attention to someone who appeared to be so ordinary? After picking up the key to his room, Kanté walked through the lobby, discreetly observing the beauty of the environment. His simplicity contrasted with the extravagance around him, but nothing in his posture indicated discomfort. On the contrary, he seemed genuinely grateful to be there. Meanwhile, a group of rich and presumptuous businessmen watched Kanté with critical eyes. His muffled laughter and acid comments made clear the belief that this man did not belong to a place as exclusive as that. "Just look at him. It must have gotten lost here," commented one of them mockingly. "Or he came to make some delivery. I bet he got confused and entered through the main entrance," added another, drawing laughter from the group. Kanté, however, did not seem to notice, or if he did not let it show. He went on calmly, maintaining the lightness that always accompanied him. He cordially greeted a passing employee with a baggage cart, showing sincere respect for everyone around him. The contrast between its simplicity and the pomp of the place was evident. But what no one knew, or cared to find out, is that this man carried more than a fortune earned with talent and dedication. He brought with him a genuine heart and a humility that would soon change the lives of those who judged him without knowing him. The magic of that story was just beginning, and fate would be in charge of making appearances be completely destroyed, making room for something much more powerful and true. The next day, the movement in the lobby of the Hôtel de l'Étoile was frenetic. Well-dressed executives paraded in their impeccable suits, while elegant women sported sparkling jewelry and expensive perfumes that left subtle traces in the air. For many, being there was an opportunity to reaffirm their status and be noticed. N'Golo Kanté, on the other hand, remained discreet with his usual simplicity. After a quiet breakfast, he decided to explore the hotel's common areas without ever interrupting the employees' routine or disturbing the other guests. He was a man who preferred the stillness and peace of a good book or a polite conversation with anyone who wanted to exchange a few words. But for some more critical and arrogant eyes, this discretion of Kanté did not go unnoticed, but unfortunately, for the wrong reasons. Across the lobby, a group of businessmen sat in lavish armchairs, discussing financial deals and ambitious projects while sipping expensive cigars. Among them, Pierre Moreau, a real estate magnate, was known as much for his fortune as for his arrogance. "It's unbelievable how this place is starting to lose control over who they let in," Pierre commented, casting a dismissive look in Kanté's direction. "Who is this man anyway? It looks like he doesn't even know how to dress properly to be here," added another of the businessmen, turning up his nose in disgust. "It's probably some employee who thought he could enjoy a little of our exclusive area," added Pierre with a cynical smile on his face. Later, while Kanté was resting quietly outside the hotel, admiring the beautiful gardens that surrounded the place, he was interrupted by one of the security guards, a tall man with a cold, formal expression, who seemed determined to put things in order. "Sir, I'm sorry, but we need to ensure that only authorized guests use the hotel's private areas. Could you please present your identification?" said the security guard, in a tone that sounded more like an accusation than a solicitation. Kanté looked up and smiled politely. There was no trace of resentment on his countenance. With the calm of someone with a pure heart and a clear conscience, he pulled the magnetic key to his room from his pocket and showed it to the security guard. "Of course, here it is. It is room 307. Do you need anything else?" he replied, with a gentleness that seemed to disarm even the most rigid of hearts. The security guard, visibly disconcerted by Kanté's politeness, apologized in a hurry. But the incident did not go unnoticed. Pierre and his friends watched from afar, without bothering to hide the satisfied smile that danced on their lips. "See? I said he didn't belong here. He probably only got that room because someone made a mistake," sneered Pierre, pleased with the confirmation of his prejudice. Meanwhile, Kanté calmly returned to the interior of the hotel. The way he had been treated did not disturb him. He understood that the world was full of people who judged others without knowing them. But the real lesson was yet to come, and when it did, the impact would be profound and unforgettable. It was early evening when the lobby of the Hôtel de l'Étoile became the stage for a lavish event. Paris's top businessmen, celebrities, and influencers gathered for an elegant reception, hosted by Pierre Moreau himself, who took advantage of every moment to flaunt his influence and power. The room was impeccably decorated with lush floral arrangements and soft lighting that reflected in the crystals hanging from the ceiling. Waiters milled around offering glasses of champagne of refined labels and elaborate appetizers that looked like works of art. N'Golo Kanté had been invited to the event by a close friend, a respected former footballer who was now dedicated to charitable and social projects. Initially, Kanté was reluctant to attend the reception, preferring to avoid large crowds and ostentation. But his friend convinced him, saying it could be a good opportunity to support important causes. He arrived at the event the same way he had arrived at the hotel, without extravagance, without attracting attention. For Kanté, being there was more of a chance to observe human behavior than to promote or impress himself. With his quiet smile, he walked around the hall admiring the artistic effort that had been put into the decoration and politely greeting the staff who served the guests. But Kanté's presence did not go unnoticed by the cruel eyes of Pierre Moreau and his circle of friends. For them, the presence of someone so seemingly simple at such an exclusive event was practically an insult. "Unbelievable! How did this guy manage to get in here?" questioned Pierre, visibly annoyed. "Maybe I'm here to work as a security guard or something," joked one of the men next to him, drawing muffled laughter from the group. Meanwhile, Kanté approached a small stage set up for the main speech of the evening. His friend, the organizer of the event, spotted him and greeted him warmly, drawing the attention of many around. "Finally, you've arrived, N'Golo. What an honor to have you here with us," said the man with sincerity and enthusiasm. "Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here to support such a noble cause," Kanté replied with a gentle smile. The organizer then took the microphone and began his speech, thanking everyone for their presence and emphasizing the importance of the social cause they were supporting that night. But it was his next sentence that made the entire room fall silent in surprise. "And now, I have the honor of inviting to the stage one of the greatest examples of humility and generosity I have ever known, a man whose kindness goes far beyond the football fields. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the great N'Golo Kanté with a round of applause." The impact was immediate. Murmurs of incredulity began to spread through the hall. Pierre and his friends, who had spent the whole day despising Kanté and mocking him, were flabbergasted. As Kanté calmly took the stage, the applause that echoed through the hall was genuine and warm. His humble and serene presence contrasted sharply with the opulence of the place. He thanked the audience with a shy smile before starting his speech. "I sincerely thank you for the warm welcome, but I believe that true recognition should be given to all those who work hard every day to do good. Even when no one is looking, we are here to help, to make a difference. And that's something we can all do, regardless of our status, our money, or our looks." His words deeply touched the hearts present, and as Kanté spoke, many realized how much they had been deceived by appearances. He didn't need luxuries to demonstrate his greatness. His simplicity and genuine kindness were his true legacy. But for Pierre Moreau, shame was beginning to erode from within. The one he had despised and ridiculed was, in fact, someone infinitely grander than he could ever imagine. The impact of N'Golo Kanté's words lingered in the air, like a soothing melody that continued to play in the back of the mind of every person present. The entire hall seemed to breathe differently. The luxury and brilliance of the crystals became irrelevant in the face of the genuine humility of that man who, without needing any ostentation, had captivated everyone. Pierre Moreau stood still, his expression of bewilderment frozen on his face. His habitual arrogance had been crushed by the weight of his own ignorance. Suddenly, he remembered every contemptuous look he had cast at Kanté, every cruel and unfair comment he had whispered to his friends. It was as if his mind forced him to review every moment of his arrogance. As the guests murmured compliments about Kanté and approached to shake his hand, Pierre walked away to a secluded corner of the room. The pride he had always displayed so vehemently now left him paralyzed with shame. But at the same time, a strange sense of wonder invaded him, as if something inside him was slowly being transformed. Determined to face his own mistakes, Pierre mustered up his courage and walked up to Kanté, who was talking politely with some guests. Noticing the businessman's approach, Kanté turned and greeted him with the same cordial smile as always. "Mr. Kanté, I need to talk to you," Pierre said, his voice wavering. His tone was different now, devoid of any arrogance. "Of course I hear," Kanté replied gently. Pierre hesitated for a moment as if looking for the right words to express the weight he carried in his chest. "I made a terrible mistake. From the moment I saw you here, I have judged you cruelly and unfairly. I assumed I knew you only by the way you presented yourself. I never bothered to understand who you really were, only deduct, and now I realize how wrong that was." Kanté watched the man in front of him with patience and compassion. There was no resentment in his gaze, only understanding. "I appreciate your sincerity," said Kanté quietly. "We all make mistakes, Mr. Moreau. The important thing is to learn from them. Sometimes true growth comes from acknowledging our flaws and trying to be better." Kanté's words were spoken with such simplicity and truth that Pierre felt his eyes burn. It was as if he were in front of a mirror that reflected his own imperfections. "I would like to redeem myself, Mr. Kanté, and if you allow it, I would like to support you in your social projects. I have resources that can be useful, and I want to use them in the right way. I want to do something that really matters." Kanté smiled, genuinely touched by the unexpected humility of that man. "If you wish to help, Mr. Moreau, you are very welcome. But remember that the most important thing is not how much you offer, but the intention behind the gesture. Doing good is something we can all do, regardless of who we are or what we have." Those words resonated deeply in Pierre's soul. For the first time in years, he felt that he was facing something truly great. Not a millionaire business, not a lucrative contract, but the opportunity to become a better person. And in a way he had never imagined, Kanté's presence at that event had changed his life forever. The news about N'Golo Kanté's speech spread like wildfire through social networks. The guests present at the reception wasted no time in sharing videos and emotional accounts about the impact of Kanté's words. But what drew the most attention was not his fame as a soccer player, but his authenticity and disconcerting humility. Within hours, recordings of the speech had surpassed millions of views. Comments of admiration and inspiration sprang up on all platforms. People were surprised to discover that such a respected public figure could be even grander off the pitch, where his simplicity was his true strength. Pierre Moreau, for his part, kept the promise made to Kanté. Days after the EA event, he sought out the player and the two met again, this time at a small community center in a poor neighborhood of Paris. The center was one of the many social projects supported by Kanté, dedicated to offering sports, cultural and educational activities for children and young people in vulnerable situations. Upon entering that simple and welcoming space, Pierre saw something he had never witnessed in his business meetings: true joy. Children of all ages ran around the makeshift field with sincere smiles and enthusiasm shining in their eyes. Dedicated volunteers guided them with patience and love. And there was Kanté, surrounded by a crowd of young men who hugged him and pulled his hand, begging him to play with them. And he played, not to show talent, but to share joy. Pierre watched, all this with a mixture of amazement and admiration. Alongside Kanté, he began to dedicate part of his fortune to building new courts, offering scholarships and financing educational programs that could guarantee a more promising future for those children. But what surprised him most was realizing that the real gift was not what he gave, but what he received in return. Every smile, every hug, every look of gratitude filled a void that no millionaire contract had ever been able to fill. Over time, Pierre and Kanté became unlikely friends. The entrepreneur began to understand that his own success would only make sense if he could contribute to something bigger. Inspired by Kanté's humility and kindness, he turned his businesses into tools for doing good, redirecting part of his profits to social projects throughout France. Newspaper headlines highlighted this new era for Pierre Moreau's empire, but for him the real triumph was invisible to the eyes of the media. This was what happened in the small community centers, in the improvised soccer fields, in the free art and music classes that appeared as seeds of hope, where before there was only neglect. What about Kanté? He continued exactly as he always was. He never sought recognition or accolades. His mission was simple: to do good wherever he went, knowing that every gesture, no matter how small, could transform someone's world. The lesson learned in that luxurious Paris hotel echoed in every act of generosity Pierre performed, because he had finally understood that true greatness is not in power, money, or fame. She lives in the simplicity of a pure heart that chooses to do good. And in an unexpected and magical way, that experience had forever changed not only Pierre's life, but also that of everyone who was lucky enough to cross N'Golo Kanté's path. The story of N'Golo Kanté reminds us that true greatness is not measured by wealth, power, or fame. It is in the way we treat others, in the humility with which we walk through the world, and in the willingness to do good without expecting anything in return. Sometimes we judge people without knowing their stories, without understanding their struggles and achievements. But when we choose to look beyond appearances, we discover precious treasures hidden in the simplest hearts. Pierre Moreau learned this lesson the most unexpected way. And who would have thought that someone so powerful would have his life transformed by genuine humility? This story teaches us that regardless of where we are or what we own, we can always make a difference in someone's life. If this message touched your heart, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel to follow more inspiring stories like this. And remember, true wealth lies in how you choose to do good for the world.